Welcome in our MOOC course titled Modern Indian Writing in English Translation. Our today's topic for discussion is Rebati by Fakir Mohan Senapati. Fakir Mohan Senapati, born in 14th January 1843 and demised in 14th June 1918, is one of the leading architects of modern Odia prose. He brought the realistic approach into his writing through the village life and social conditions with clarity. His literary contributions include short stories, novels, essays such as Revati, Cha Atmana Athaguntha, and Patent Medicine. Senapati also worked actively to strengthen Odia literature and language and education with journalism during his lifetime. With this short introduction about the author, we are now going to discuss the storyline, or what we can say the plot construction of the short story Rebati. At the very onset of the short story, we see that Patapur was a quiet village in the Hariharpur subdivision of Cuttack district. Shambandhu is the father of the protagonist of the story Rebati, who works under the zamindar of the village as a revenue collector. His position gave him authority and responsibility within the village community. Shambandhu earned 2 rupees per month as salary, but he increased his income by minor adjustments in the rent receipts and land records, raising it to nearly 4 rupees per month, with which he lived comfortably with his family. In his family consisted of his wife, his aged mother, and his 10-year-old daughter Rebati. They had 2 cows, a steady supply of milk and curd, vegetable grown at home. The zamindar had granted Shambandhu 3.5 acres of zameens rent-free for producing vegetables and grains for his family's need. Shambandhu was honest, gentle, and respected by the villagers. He collected taxes patiently and kindly, without any force or without demanding any extra money. His conduct reflected integrity and responsibility, making him a rare figure of authority admired by the poor people and the villagers. Every evening, Shambandhu sat on the veranda singing the Bhagavata with his little daughter Rebati. Rebati always sat beside him, listening attentively. He memorized her the hymns and sang them sweetly together. These evenings were very peaceful and filled with devotion. Rebati's melodious voice enhanced the beauty of the prayers. Father and daughter shared a very close bond with these religious activities. 2 years earlier, the deputy inspector of school came to visit Patapur. With the request of the elders of the village, he decided to establish an upper primary school in the village. As a result, he wrote a letter to the inspector of schools and an upper primary school was established. The government paid the teacher salaries as 4 rupees per month, collecting an anna from every student. The children began attending classes regularly. The school became an important institution in the village, and this was another important development in the rural environment of the village. The school teacher, Basudev, was a young man of 20 years and he was trained in the Cuttack Norman School. He was raised by his uncle as he was an orphan. He is a very gentle and humble person and never displayed any arrogance. The villagers admired him and the children respected him. His presence brought dignity to the school. Basu adapted easily to the village life and soon became an integral part of the daily life of Patapur community. Shambandhu also developed an affection for Basu, partly because they belonged to the same caste. On special occasions and especially on Thursdays, Basu invited by Shambandhu in his house and gradually a close bond formed between them. Rebati eagerly waited for Basu's arrival and announced it from a distance. She sat beside him and sang devotional songs. One day, Basu mentioned about a girls' school in Cuttack to Shambandhu, where girls can read and learn crafts. Hearing this, Shambandhu felt a strong desire to educate her young girl Rebati, and with it, he shared his idea with Basu. The teacher readily supported it, and Rebati overheard their conversation and excitedly declared her wish to study. Her mother smiled and approved. However, the grandmother only wanted her to learn the domestic skills. That evening, the grandmother confronted Shambandhu during dinner. Despite the opposition, Shambandhu firmly stood by Rebati and decided to give her the formal education for the benefit of her future. With this, the following afternoon, Basu brought Rebati a copy of First Lesson by Sitanath Babu. Rebati was overjoyed and eagerly examined every page. She proudly showed the book to her mother and grandmother. While her grandmother reacted with irritation, Rebati dismissed her objection. Thus began Rebati's formal education under Basu's guidance. Basu taught Rebati daily and never missed a lesson. Over the next 2 years, Rebati studied diligently. She memorized the poems by Madhu Rao and recited them fluently. One evening, Shambandhu was discussing about Basu's caste with his mother, and the grandmother exclaimed that caste is more important than wealth. Partially, Rebati overheard this conversation and she became more coy towards Basu. She became shy and avoided reading aloud and blushed frequently. Basu noticed her transformation but continued to teach her with patiently and kindly. As time passed, Rebati grew increasingly reserved in Basu's presence. She lingered near the doorway before his arrival but hid when he entered. Then, with this, on one Falguna day, suddenly, an epidemic called cholera struck the village. Fear spread rapidly. Doors were shut and villagers avoided contact with each other. That morning, Shambandhu felt ill and the news spread quickly. The family faced an unexpected crisis threatening their stability in the family. When Basu heard about Shambandhu's illness, He rushed to the house without fear. He sat beside Shambandhu, massaging his limbs and giving him water. But nothing worked. Shambandhu passed away. Revati rolled on the floor with grief. Her mother and grandmother were helpless to perform the last rituals of Shambandhu. With the help of Banasethi, the washerman in the village, they performed the last rites of Shambandhu. Exhausted when they came back home, only to face another tragedy soon afterwards. Revati's mother also felt ill and was contracted by cholera. By midday, she died. The village mourned briefly. With months' misfortune multitude. The zamindar confiscated the family's cows, claiming unpaid taxes. He claimed the rent-free house land as well. The farmland left due to lack of work. The bullocks were sold for funeral expenses. Basu tried to help them, but the grandmother refused. But still, Basu continued to help them with provisions brought by him. The grandmother blamed Revati for this misfortune. She accused her education of causing death and loss of property. She cursed Revati daily, calling her ill-omened. Revati shrank into silence, hiding in corners or the backyard and crying alone. Basu remained the only support system for Revati. Her presence faded from the house. She stopped eating properly and slept poorly and became physically weak. Her world became empty and colorless, filled only with the memories of her parents. With this, Revati's health deteriorated very steadily. Hunger no longer affected her, and sleep deserted her. She lay on the floor all day and night. Only Basu's visit revived her slightly. But one hot Jest afternoon, Basu arrived unexpectedly. He informed the grandmother that he must travel to Hariharpur for school examination and would be away for 5 days. He purchased provisions and prepared it for them. The grandmother warned him, and Revati stared at him openly with empty eyes. She couldn't express her feelings to Basu at all. After Basu left, Revati started counting the days anxiously. On the 6th day, when the schoolboys returned with the tragic news of Basu's death, the village mourned it deeply, but Revati became more silent. The disaster shattered her entire world. Revati collapsed silently on the floor. The following morning, the grandmother could not find Revati beside her and began shouting angrily. Searching the house, she found Revati unconscious and down with fever. Though alarmed, she blamed the illness on Revati's action and delayed seeking help, believing the girl had caused her own sufferings. For several days, Revati lay motionless with fever, delirium, and thirst. The grandmother believed the fever had passed when Revati asked for water faintly. Hoping that she will definitely recover from this, the grandmother searched to cook something for Revati. Provisions meant for 5 days had already lasted 10. Desperate, she took the last valuable object of the house, a broken brass bowl, and went to Harisha's shop. He initially refused to exchange it, but later gave her some rice, lentils, and salt. The grandmother turned home exhausted, hoping Revati had improved. Calling out, she received no response and grew fearful. While the grandmother struggled, Revati's condition worsened. Weak and delirious, she crawled out of the house seeking relief from heat. A gentle breeze blew. She noticed the banana plant, the guava sapling, planted by her parents. Memories flooded over her mind. Night fell slowly. Revati gazed at the sky and fixed her eyes on the stars. In her delirium, the star grew brighter and larger. She imagined her mother is asking for her. Over Revati cried out twice and fell silent. Her breathing ceased and she remained motionless in the darkness. The grandmother searched the house frantically, shouting curses. She moved through rooms, the courtyard, and shed but could not find Revati. Finally, she went to the veranda at the back. There she stumbled upon Revati's body. She shouted angrily and tried to shake that girl, but sensed something wrong. Feeling the cold body, she realized Revati was dead. She screamed in despair. Both bodies fell from the veranda to the ground below. The night marked the end of Shambandhu's Mohanty's family. The house that once echoed with hymns and laughter now stood silent. The final words heard from it were curses hurled at Revati, echoing through the village streets. The deaths of Shambandhu, his wife, Basudev, and Revati left Patapur stunned. The villagers spoke about the tragedies in hushed tones. The once respected Mohanty family has been erased completely. The zamindar reclaimed the property without any resistance. No one remained to perform the rituals and preserve the memories of the family. The house gradually fell into decay. The school continued without Basu. The village life resumed slowly. Revati's story became known as one marked by loss and suffering. The chain of events unfolded relentlessly, ending with silence and emptiness. The narrative closes with the haunting repetition of grandmother's curse, the last echo from the destroyed lifeline and the family line was Revati, you fire, you ashes. With this, the narrative of the story Revati ends. Fakir Mohan Senapati, through his story Revati, has not only portrayed the actual life condition of Indian villages, but also has portrayed the situation of women education in India. Though education is a fundamental right according to the Constitution of India, we can see the stories of Revati in here and there. Revati stands not only as a victim of the barriers, of the societal barriers and patriarchal condition, but with her demise, the tragedy of women education has been explored by Fakir Mohan Senapati. As in feminist education, it is said that women don't inherit the traditions from the society. Rather, they are expected to bound by the traditional norms and barriers of the society under the patriarchal system. It is pretty much evident from the story of Revati that this is a worst condition of Indian societal structure, where women gets barriered under the patriarchal system. With this, Fakir Mohan Senapati expresses the worst condition of women. Revati's fever is met with fatalistic neglect. What medicine can be there, as uttered by the grandmother, believes that illness is self-inflicted, reflects the superstition of the grandmother. Poverty worsens neglect. No rice remains, provisions exhausted. The broken brass bowl symbolizes depleted resources. Hari Shah's reluctant exposes petty exploitations. Fakir Mohan critiques economic cruelty at micro levels. The grandmother's physical exhaustion mirrors moral fatigue. Delay in care seals Revati's fate. The narrative shows how poverty, ignorance, and mistrust of knowledge combine lethally. Illness here is not mere biological, but social, shaped by deprivation, blame, and absence of communal support. Basu's death arrives abruptly in the story. Communal mourning contrasts with earlier isolation. Villagers praise his character, highlighting lost potential. The grandmother's reaction, "You only brought it on yourself," reveals deep-seated resentment. Blame replaces grief. Revati's response, silent collapse, demonstrates emotional exhaustion. Fakir Mohan shows how repeated trauma numbs expression. Basu's death eliminates the last emotional support in Revati's life. The narrative emphasizes inevitably the cholera spares no one. Godness, youth, promise vanish without reason, reinforcing the story's tragic realism. Revati's vision, her loving mother sat in the heart of it, blends realism with lyrical imagery. Fakir Mohan portrays delirium without romanticizing death. The stars expanding across the sky reflects mental disintegration. Memory replaces present reality. Nature, the guava sapling, banana plant, connects past nurturing with final longing. The vision is maternal, not divine, emphasizing emotional need rather than spiritual transcendence. Her cries to her mother signal regression to childhood dependence. The author uses symbolism sparingly, allowing hallucination to emerge originally from illness and exhaustion. The scene is tragic yet tender, marking emotional reunion only through death. The grandmother's final discovery: two bodies fell from the veranda, ends the narrative brutally. Physical collapse mirrors moral and familial annihilation. The repeated cry, "You fire," that turns all into ashes, becomes tragically ironic. The real destructive forces were superstition, disease, poverty, and social injustice. Fakir Mohan closes without consolation. No moral is stated. Devastation speaks for itself. The extension of Shambandhu's family signifies broader social failure. The society's power lies in its restraint, realism, and refusal to offer easy explanations. Rebati stands as a landmark of Indian realist fiction, exposing how fragile lives crumble under ignorance and structural cruelty. The symbolisms used by Fakir Mohan Senapati in the story Rebati and the characters used in the short story Rebati are very much aligned with the social life of Indian villages. Rebati stands as an example for many of us. Fakir Mohan Senapati reveals the micro level exploitations through the character of the zamindar and how he exploits the family even in the worst condition. Revati's life ends. The village resumes their daily life and memories fade. With this, Fakir Mohan Senapati also emphasizes on the role of memory. Revati's memories of her parents makes her more weak and helpless. She, instead of getting any emotional help from the villagers and the relatives, Revati only got refusal. Not only that, her own grandmother, who is the embodiment of the patriarchal condition, also angrily scolded her for her education. Through this journey, we get to know how education for women was one of the most important feature in the modern day in India, but still it was a worse nightmare for many of the girls and women in the villages.